What's up everyone, welcome back to Overlanding World. In this video we're going to show you how to install a lift on a 2004 Land Rover Discovery 2.
So this time, unlike our last Land Rover, we decided to go with a medium duty spring. So we were able to source some secondhand springs off of OfferUp. These are the Terrafirma medium duty ones. And we managed to score some Fox shocks, which are out of stock everywhere and way better than all the other shocks all around. So we're super excited to install these. We also have some 33-inch tires which were left over from Larry that we're gonna throw on this guy, and we have a sway bar disconnect that we'll also teach you guys how to install. So usually you're only supposed to use the Land Rover tire iron on these lug nuts when taking all the wheels off, but we can't find ours, so we're just gonna use a 12-point. That is not good because we're gonna mess up the lug nuts, but we have a lot of spare ones, so we should be fine.
We started with taking off our very rusted lug nuts. We then jacked up the front of the car from the axle and lowered it onto the jack stands. Next, we kicked off the front tires to expose the shocks and the springs.
Our shock towers on this car are a little bit rusted. They are known for like peeling, and they're kind of shitty anyway. So we got these, what are they, Terrafirma ones that are a lot beefier, and they're gonna handle the lift way better. So to remove the upper shock mount and the shock tower itself, you're gonna need an 18mm wrench and a 12mm socket.
Alright, so two of the bolts for the tower you have to get from inside the engine bay, and then the other two are on the outside right here, so you can just get it from the outside. Okay, next is just going to be unbolting the shock from the bottom. You can reach it just through the spring. It's size 13. Just going to loosen that up.
After that, the shock and the shock tower should be free and ready to pull out from the engine bay.
So we got the old shocks out, and these things are gone. They're supposed to have like spring back, and these things just do not have any of that.
Alright guys, so before we had the jack stands on the axle there, we decided to move it so it could sit on the frame, just so the axle can drop down, and it'll be a little bit easier to take those springs out and then put the new ones in.
And to undo the shock bolt, the top shock bolt on the passenger side, you're supposed to move the reservoir. It is not held on or bolted in, it's just, it clips in here. So if you pull it up, it will just pop right out, and then you can move it to the side.
Now, we just do the same exact steps to the passenger side, and then we are ready to remove the springs.
Alright guys, so we pulled off the old springs out of the car. Now, if you get these brand new, obviously they're going to be labeled, but ours are not labeled. So we just kind of matched the ones that were close enough to that one. And one important thing is the springs are different from passenger and driver side. So whatever is the driver's side one is the is the taller one. So whenever you put these two next to each other, the one that is taller is the driver one. Now we didn't get the spring compressors because we were lazy. So we hope that it actually goes together.
Okay, so we took the jack out and we lowered the axle as far as down as it would go. And we were able to get the spring in there with little struggle. We got both the springs on.
Tell them how we lifted it.
From the radius arm joint, just enough so the axle could fall a little bit more and we could get the spring in. So front is good. Now we're gonna put the shocks in.
And all of this because we're too lazy to go to get a spring compressor. So we just dropped the shocks from the top and put the two 13s at the bottom. So since the upgraded shock towers don't have bolts on the, don't have a welded nut on the other side, we had to go to Ace and get a grade 8 bolt and a nut so we could fixture it all together.
Once you attach the shock to the tower, you can now lower it through the engine bay. Be sure to tighten the 4 shock tower bolts on both sides, and now it's time to bolt down the bottom of the shock and move on to the rear suspension. Same process here, just remove the tires and put the rear on jack stands.
The lift on the back end is a lot easier. We have the spring right there. The shock is only held on by one 18mm bolt at the top and another one down there at the bottom.
Loosen both the top and bottom bolts that hold the shock in place and do your best to pry it out. Now it's time to remove the old springs. You can try our little technique of standing on the rotor for a quick second to create more space, or just honestly kick it out, whatever would work. Probably the hardest part of the whole lift is getting the taller springs into place, and after this we finally just gave in.
So we got a little bit annoyed and we went back to AutoZone and got our compressors. It would have made this whole thing way easier if we had it at the beginning, but it's not that you live and learn, because this is our third time doing this. So yeah, get your spring compressors, because the back ones are a little bit harder.
The spring compressors are super convenient and make it really easy to just slide the taller springs into place. As you can see, you just compress it as much as you need and you can just put it into its place and then decompress the spring. The shocks will bolt in with the same stock bolts, and then you are almost done with the rear suspension. Just repeat the same steps on the other side and you now have a lifted Land Rover.
Alright guys, it is Sunday. Tiff is at work today, so she couldn't be here to finish off this part of the lift. But as you guys can see, last night we got these 33-inch tires mounted on the stock wheels. These are the tires we had on our first Land Rover before we went to 34s, I guess. So yeah, we still had these laying around, so we decided to throw them on this car. It is really cool to have them back on a car. So yeah, let's get all the tires mounted and see how the car looks.